tax planning for your children. Hi, I'm financial planner Sean Mullaney. Let's discuss. So this gets a lot of attention in the personal finance space. What are those tactics that young parents can employ today that can set up junior for a tax situation that's fantastic when junior is an adult? I'm going to share my two favorite tactics in this regard. The first one I really like is mom and dad beefing up their own Roth accounts. So here's what can happen, right? Mom and dad can work, or one of them works, and over time there's contributions to Roth IRAs, maybe there's contributions to Roth 401ks, maybe there's Roth conversions during maybe an early retirement or even a late retirement. And mom and dad can have years and years, decades even, of tax-free growth in their own Roth IRAs. That's fantastic. And my guess is mom and dad in their financial planning are not planning on dying with zero. So hopefully junior and junior siblings can inherit some substantial amounts in Roth accounts when mom and dad die. And here's the thing, after decades of tax-free growth in mom and or dad's hands, those Roth accounts can get another 10 years, another full decade of tax-free growth when junior and junior siblings inherit. That's pretty good tax planning for junior and for junior siblings. So that's my first favorite tactic, beefing up mom and dad's Roth accounts. Now, of course, that's not mom and dad's only consideration, but let's just think in a vacuum for a few minutes here. Okay. Here's the second thing I like to do when we're thinking about junior's future tax situation. It will be great for mom and dad to build up their own taxable accounts. Let's think about that for a second. Maybe mom and dad invest in mutual funds or ETFs. It could be ETFs, it could be other financial assets. Maybe mom and dad invest in rental real estate. Maybe mom and dad just invest in their own primary residence. Whatever it is, mom and dad can hold that, hopefully for decades and decades. Hopefully mom and dad live a long time. And like I said earlier, hopefully mom and dad aren't planning on dying penniless. So when mom and dad pass, that mutual fund, that rental real estate, that primary residence, whatever it is, can pass to junior and his siblings tax-free. And it gets even better. Not only do they inherit tax-free, shortly after the funeral, they can basically sell tax-free, right? There's this step up in basis, one of my favorite things in the Internal Revenue Code. Incredible tax planning opportunity for your children, but you only get it if you hold on to the assets. So those would be my two favorite tax tactics for mom and dad to really juice junior's tax situation. Well, Sean, what about other approaches I've heard about? Maybe a 529, or maybe making a contribution to a kid's Roth IRA. Aren't those better? Don't those get better results than what you're talking about? Well, I've got three reasons why I would prefer to build up assets under mom and dad's name rather than under junior's name or the sibling's name while junior and the siblings are young children. The first reason is this. Whenever we do financial planning for a dollar, we ought to, generally speaking, in most cases, employ tactics that enable that dollar to serve multiple masters. So let's think about it for a second. If mom and dad put some money in their own Roth IRA or in their own taxable brokerage account, that money can serve mom. It can serve dad. It could serve mom, dad, and the young family while junior and his siblings are little kids. It can then later serve junior and or his siblings when they are adults and maybe much later on in their lives. What if we put that in a 529? What if we put it in a kid's Roth IRA? Well, generally speaking now, that dollar is mostly just going to serve junior. With that one shift in tactics where we're moving money into accounts that benefit junior when junior's a young child, we've got a real drawback. And that drawback is now that money, generally speaking, can't serve multiple masters. I love planning where we employ tactics, get tax breaks, and we're able to keep that money serving multiple masters if we need that. So that's the first reason I prefer the tactics I suggested at the beginning of the video. Here's the second reason. Think about the tax benefits I laid out. right, through things like tax-free growth in a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k, plus no RMDs during mom and dad's lifetime, plus the 10-year rule, right? The 10-year rule isn't that bad of a rule. It says Junior inherits a Roth IRA from his mom or his dad, when Junior's 60 years old, say, and Junior does not have to take $1 of RMDs till year 10, and Junior's not taxed at all, including if he takes it all out in year 10. That's really good tax planning for Junior. Now, you're going to say, well, that's not quite as good as a Roth IRA in Junior's name, because in theory, Junior could let that sit to age 90, and it could be $1 bazillion because of decades of tax-free growth. And that's a fair point, but I'm getting you a long way towards that sort of outcome just by keeping it in mom and dad's name, having it build up tax-free during their lifetimes, and then getting another decade. Plus, I'm getting you the step up in basis if I'm leaving Junior assets at mom and dad's death. For most Americans, that's getting most of the way towards, a quote unquote optimal tax result. Now, yes, in theory, the kids' Roth IRA's got, more growth potential, absolutely. But it also has these drawbacks that we're talking about too. So that's the second reason is, I think the tax breaks for Junior, I'm not talking about mom and dad, I'm talking about Junior. The tax breaks for Junior under my planning techniques are actually pretty good. Here's the third reason I would prefer keeping those assets in mom and dad's name. When we think about planning, we don't know the financial future. But here's the thing. We ought to at least think about and play it out. Well, what if things go really south? Right. So yeah, if everything just returns 10%, 15%, 20%, we're all going to win as long as we save and invest, right? But that's not always going to be the outcome. Especially let's think about when mom and dad are young parents and they've got a young family. What if things do go south? Is it going to be helpful to have contributed to the kids' 529? Probably not. And in fact, that money could be a little trapped in there a little bit if it's separately grown or it's had years of growth and now mom and dad are struggling. What if there's job loss, things like that? I'm not saying these things are going to happen, right? But we at least ought to be thinking about the range of possible future outcomes. And sadly, south is a direction our finances can go. And, we ought to at least think about, well, wait a minute, we're employing this tax planning, say for our, 3-year-old child, 15-year-old child, whatever it is. What about our own situation, and are we guaranteed that we're not going south? Yes, if mom and dad are worth $10 million and they spend $200,000 a year, yeah, they probably ought to start thinking about, hey, what can we do in Junior's name because we're starting to pay a ton of tax? But that's not 99.9% of Americans, right? Most Americans should be thinking, well, okay, in my financial planning, is there at least some consideration of what if things head south? So for those three reasons, I tend to think the best tax planning that serves mom, dad, and Junior is to build up mom and dad's Roth IRAs and other Roth accounts and to build up mom and dad's taxable accounts. And I know this isn't the perspective you get in a lot of the financial content out there, but that's part of the reason hopefully you watch my channels for a different perspective. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please mash that like button and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you next time.